Because to walk with the Spirit is to spend time with it. When you are spending time on it, you are showing your love, right? Because you are giving the efforts to, excuse me, you are giving attention to it, right? And when there is attention, you have a lot of time and space to fix what needs to be fixed, right? Because there is joy in developing, right? So if you want to build the spirit of temperance, then meditate on that, right? And words will branch out from that, right? Such as definitions. So far our definition for temperance is a self-controlled behavior that maintains your balance through daily meditations and reflections that excuse me which removes distractions, right? because because distractions shakes your balance, right? And pulls you in closer to temptation, and you don't want that to happen, right? Because it starts with the temptation, right? But if you if you fill yourself with a lot of knowledge, right, that is also useful, such as a guide, right? For example, when you are doing something and you notice yourself getting distracted, sometimes those words will remind you, right? Just like the definition that we built. I'm trying my best to not chat GPT as much as I can, It's more fulfilling to receive it from within, you know, and build from there, It's like mining gold from within, and you build gold from the stuff that you dig up, right? So far, temperance, right, is the self-controlled behavior or spirit that maintains your balance by the removal of distractions through daily meditations, through daily meditations and reflections, right? So, for example, earlier I was getting distracted by too many games and listening to a lot of music at the same time. So, a lot was being stimulated, right? Even the flesh, right? So, in that case, when you are always stimulated, or dopamine, your flesh will also be activating whatever it is that you are desiring, right? But Galatians 5:16 is the cure, right? Let's read. This I say then, walk in the Spirit. I repeat, walk in the Spirit, right? That and ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh, right? So slow down, right? So what I did was I slowed down. I was playing chess and listening to blues music, right? So a lot of it is activated. You see, it's like in Song of Sol. I believe in the book of Sirach, it says that love is kindled like fire, right? So it's the same thing. So even your desires for the flesh also is stimulated. But what does Galatians 5:16 says? Walk in the Spirit. I repeat, walk in the Spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. In other words, slow down, right? Because temperance is what? Losing its balance, right? See, by having a guide, you are reminded that, hey, you are losing your balance. Therefore, practice temperance or slow down and let go of other stuff or of other distractions that you may maintain what? Sounds familiar, right? That you may maintain your what? Balance, right? So that's a guidance, right? You now have a set of rules or reminders or guidance, because once you notice that you are losing your grip or balance from too many distractions, then that's the time to remind yourself again that, hey, I'm losing my grip or I'm losing my balance. There's a lot of things at the table or in front of my computer, playing games and listening to music. So many stuff is being activated. I have to say to myself, what? Slow down. Galatians 5 and 16. Walk in the Spirit. Again, walk in the Spirit. In other words, slow down, right? Once you slow down, you stay composed, right? What's the other word for composure? Balance, right? That's why this is a good mindset. What are the three foundations that we are building again? First is gratitude or presence, whatever it is. Second is temperance, and third is diligence, right? And we will refine it along this walk, right? As the Passover comes, right? It's just around the corner. I believe it's in April the 1st, right? We're gonna practice temperance, right? And first is gratitude, right? Because Christ will now dwell in us, right? But we we're doing ourselves what we are doing is we examine ourselves every day, right? That we may fix what needs to be fixed, right? Because there's a lot of snares and traps and temptations of this world that we don't want to get entangled with. So we examine ourselves, right? We have to what? Slow down. We have to slow down. That you may what? Not fulfill the lust of the flesh, right? And combine that with this verse, right? Ephesians 6 and 12. Oops, I think it's 5 also. This is what we are doing today, right? Yes, right now it has a lot of distractions, right? What must we do? Ephesians 5 and 23. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, and he is the Savior of the body. Therefore, as the church is subject unto Christ, so let the wives be to their own husbands in everything. Continuing, as Christ, let's go here. Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it, that he might what? Sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of water by the word. We are watering our minds again with the joyfulness of the words, right? Or how the words behave, or how the words behave, or how the words worked, right? Because once you know how words work, the stuff that comes out of you, that's the same thing, right? And that's how you maintain your balance, right? Because there's a lot of uncleanliness, distractions in there. That's why you have to vaporize it with the word, right? Only plain and wisdom is left. But yeah, we always remember that faith is a practice. I repeat, faith is a practice, right? When you are practicing something, you are building what? A muscle. In other words, a habit, right? That is enough for you to build every day that you may survive the temptations of this life. Proverbs 24 and 5. Proverbs chapter 24 and verse 5. A wise man is strong. Again, a wise man is strong. Yea, a man of knowledge increaseth strength, right? What is the biblical strength? Again, a man of knowledge increaseth strength. Let's jump to verse 10. If thou faint in the day of adversity, thy strength is small. What is that strength again? Knowledge, right? If we are if we are washing away our minds with the word by filling in new words, that is what? Knowledge, right? You're accepting new knowledge or new ideas, right? And that ideas are the three foundations that we are building. One of those three is temperance, right? Now we have the knowledge, excuse me, therefore we now have the knowledge of temperance, right? And for example, earlier you were distracted, right? But we were strong because we had what? We had knowledge. You had the knowledge of temperance because earlier you were losing your balance, right? But we built that definition. And that definition is what? It's temperance is the self-controlled behavior that maintains your what? Balance. So if you notice yourself losing your balance, you need to practice what? Temperance. What is that practice? By simply stopping or removing your distractions, right? In order to maintain balance again, right? And that is what? The biblical strength, right? Let's read again Proverbs 24 and verse 10. If thou faint in the day of adversity, thy strength is small. Right? So always build every day. Right? Develop those words every day because that is the biblical strength. And that's how you um, combat the um, fires of temptation. Right? You may always please the Most High. Right? Because that's where the Most High dwells. Therefore, you have to take care of it, right? By practicing something. Because remember, faith without practice is what? It's dead, right? Therefore, faith is a practice, right? You have to be working out something. This is an example. Daily meditations, just meditating on the word, right? And until we get that fulfilling pleasure from it, right? Because you are strengthening your what? Knowledge, right? Because knowledge is that biblical strength, right? That's why meditate it on it daily, that whenever the temptation comes, you are always prepared, right? There are many avenues for endurance, right? First Corinthians 13 and 10. This is the book of First Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13. There had no temptation taken you but such as is common to man. Common to man, or something that happens to anyone. Continuing, but God is faithful. He believes in you. Continuing, who will not suffer you to be what? Tempted above that ye are able, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, that ye may be able to bear it. Right? That's why God is faithful. God is helpful. Right? You may be working out on a gym, a hobby, business, right? Get busy on that, right? Because Sirach chapter 33 and verse 27 says, oops. This is the book of Sirach chapter 33 and verse 27. Send him to labor, that he be not idle, for idleness teacheth much evil, right? Now, as men, we have great fulfillment when we are what? Building something, right? What is that biblical strength again? Knowledge. Therefore, build knowledge, build definitions, right? Build those foundations. Right now, we are building the three foundations, which is gratitude, temperance, and diligence. Temperance is the self-controlled behavior that maintains your balance through daily meditations and reflections which removes distractions, right? Which pulls you into temptations, right? That's why when you are meditating daily, you are separating your spirit from the flesh, right? So that the flesh will always be under subjection, right? That's why always what? Walk with the spirit. Business relations. Galatians 5 and 16. This I say then, walk in the spirit. Again, walk in the spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. So every day build something, right? Build that biblical strength, which is knowledge, right? And you can build that by walking slowly with the spirit or meditating or talking with that spirit, right? And you will realize a lot of stuff and build those definitions, right? So, so that you may be guided in times of adversity or temptations, right? Then the day, all praises to the Most High, Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai. Thank you.